This is the podcast that we ask our guests from in front and behind the camera, how did they get their foot in the door? What was the key to unlocking their success? What's their story?
Our guest today is a Mexican actress on the rise. We chat about how one single self-tape and she's suddenly going toe-to-toe with Tom Hanks, the magical side of the film industry, and how her latest role in Apple TV's Stick alongside Owen Wilson was almost derailed at the last minute. Our guest today is actress Mariana Trevin.
What was the kind of, the initiation for wanting to be an actress?
I did plays when I was in school and I always loved it. I remember loving it. We did have a drama school back in Mexico. The theater was actually, it was what was the name of the theater? It had this name and it always resonated. Well, right now I'm not remembering, but it was always a magical space in school. The Hamlet Theater, of course, it was the Hamlet Theater. So it was always great when we're gonna do a play in the Hamlet Theater. It was like a place of like such exhilaration and magic. So I did a couple of plays when I was a kid in school. Um, but afterwards, I guess I started just exploring from different angles the ample, like spectrum of the arts. I studied when I was in high school. I got into a conservatory to study ¿cómo se llama? Contemporary dance.
Mm.
I did that for 4 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was going to school in the day and then in the afternoon going to the conservatory
Mm.
to do just the dance career. And I did that for 4 years. And then, you know, personal things happened in my group and, dramas and tragedies arose. And we just parted ways. But it was such a fulfilling and like formative, they were like formative years for my soul.
Mm.
And unknowingly, I think I was preparing to become an actor because I think that the actor kind of works with all those things. I mean, the
Mm.
connection to the body. And then I'll also sang a little bit here and there with my musician friends. I didn't have like a group, but I sang like and my friends had restaurants and I just got up and sang. At that
Oh,
age,
wow.
you're like, I'll just take the microphone. I don't care. And so, and so I did that. I went to Boston actually because my friends from Mexico were studying music producing and engineering in Berkeley. At some point, everybody, like two or three of my friends went there and they were like, why don't you come since you like to sing? Come for the summer. And I went to summer in Boston. I was with them. And while I was in Boston, I don't know what triggered it. Um, I really don't remember the exact moment. I don't know if I read something on a street, like an acting school, and the door. And I was like, something was triggered in my mind. And I don't know, but I ended up going to New York, taking a train and going to New York that was right next door, and
Wow.
just seeing acting schools. And I ended up staying 4 years in New York. Um, just trying to explore that. So it was kind of mysterious how it just kind of everything led to that. But everything I did before was, I think, formative of what
Mm.
was coming, of what was to be my career in life. And after studying in Boston and New York, I went back to Mexico and I started 4 years of literature.
Mm.
And I kind of forgot about the acting aspect. I went into the literature world. I studied English literature and and I was gonna be doing that in my mind. I was like, okay, so I'm gonna be in like literature criticism and and then right at the end of the career, I started having things happening in my life magically that drew me back to the profession. So I believe that it's kind of a destiny in my life
Mm.
that I was destined to do this because when I do a reading of my life, that's what I read into
Mm.
this. I'm like, oh, you start seeing the synchronicities and connecting the dots that led you, and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
so there's a plan underneath it all.
Wow. It just
Yeah,
shows
that's
you,
how
doesn't it? Like there's so many, it sounds like you could have been a dancer, you could have gone off and studied, or
yeah.
there's so many things. And as you say, it's all those moments that led to where you are now. And it's hard
Yes.
to plan that. It's kind of like take it
Yeah.
as it comes. And
Right.
yeah,
It's
that's
it's it's
incredible.
more it's beyond the rational development of a craft, or
Yeah.
something. It's I think the energy and the stamina and the soul of those years, like the teenage years and that early
Mm.
like adulthood, where you just act by impulse and where your heart leads you, and I think that paired up with, I guess, something that is beyond us and above us, that is like some destiny that is
Yeah.
waiting for you to carve through it. And it pairs off and you just go for it. You don't even think. In my case, I was not even thinking. I was not even knowing that it could be a career. You just
Mm.
like, I'm gonna do characters, I guess. Let me analyze them, let me do them. And you're kind of like in that like um parallel to like the old actors that went from place to place. They were just like going on the road in their little cart and just like do their little act in
Yeah,
in,
yeah, back in the
in one
day,
town
like
and
how it
get
all began.
yeah, and that's how it was and still is.
We have a lot of actors, we have a lot of, directors, producers, writers, casting directors on the show. And it's kind of magical how much of this is by chance, by luck, by, meeting that person, doing this thing. Was there anyone particularly early on, perhaps your parents or, a mentor that championed you, someone that kind of guided you in the right direction early on?
Yeah, I mean, there were so many. I mean, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful too that in Stick, the image of the mentor is highlighted as well, because we need them. When you're young, you think, and you have a talent, or you think you have a talent, or you're developing an interest for something, you can immediately, because of this energy that we're talking about, that you just go out and eat the world and you think you know everything and you think you're you're in a vulnerable place too because you're young, and so you need references, you need somebody who knows and teaches you things about the way, and who become inspirations for you, because this is how our soul learns, by inspiration, by someone else, by watching someone you really admire doing a beautiful craft, and just it
Mm.
impacts your soul in a way that it becomes like an inner reference and an inner source of inspiration without you even sometimes knowing it. But also, um yeah, these helpers, as you say, these assistants that come up and pop up along the way. Of course, my parents were always very supportive of this. I'm the first one in my family who has that kind of inclination, but they were always like, okay, you go ahead, whatever we can help you with, we will. And I'm always very grateful. But there's perhaps one thing that stands out. When I came back to Mexico and I was in my literature life, doing my literature career, and I was like really into it. I had forgotten about my theater world. I was like, okay, I'm doing this. And I remember watching a play in Mexico a long time ago that I loved. It was so funny, it was so hilarious and irreverent, and it was just like such a crazy. And I remember who the writer of that play was. Okay. And it stayed in my mind. And his name was Gerardo del Castillo Trejo. Gerardo Mancebo del Castillo Trejo. He had a very,
That's a
Spanish
great
like,
name.
yeah, it's a great name. And he always stayed in my mind. And so when I finished, okay, so there's like it's a little bit complicated story. I'm going to try to be brief so I don't take much of it. I'm going to summarize. But so he was always a reference. So when I came to Mexico City before I studied literature, I did a play I did a play that lasted, the process was really long. So I ended up staying in Mexico City. I was supposed to come here for a couple of months, but it went for like a year and then a year and a half, and I stayed. And in that time, I remember seeing this actor writer on the street one day, and I recognized him because he was an actor in his play too. And I ran to him, and I was like, ah, Gerardo Mancebo, you don't know me, and he was like startled, and I'm like, but I am your biggest fan. I saw your play, El Calderón. O sea, I was, so like emphatic enthusiast, and I was like, I hope one day I get to work with you. You are so great, and I love you. And he was like really startled and in the middle of the street, and I was like, well, thank you. What are you doing? What's your next? And he says, I'm writing a musical. And I was like, oh, okay, great. Well, thank you. Blah, blah, blah. I was like a mess. I'm like, oh, I hope, I wish. And and time passed, and so unfortunately, sometime after I learned that he had passed away. And I got so sad, because I never got to work with him.
Mm.
And I was like, oh my God, Gerardo, I never got to work with him. And so it really affected me. But that was before I started literature and everything. And I did my literature career. And right at the end, I get a phone call from this girl that I guess I knew from somewhere. I didn't remember. She was like, listen, somebody gave me your number, that you are an actor and we need an actor. I'm doing a play, and one of our actresses can't do one show, one night. So you would have to learn the whole play just to do one show. And I was like, okay, what's the show? And it was the musical of Gerardo.
No
She told
way.
me it, yes. And I was like, oh, what? And it was like, it's Gerardo's musical. So I got really like, oh my God, of course I'm going to learn this whole thing just to do
Yeah.
one show of his play. And I did it. And then the actress that I was filling in for that one show stayed in Canada. I think she couldn't do the rest of the season. So I ended up doing the whole season, doing
Wow.
his show. So it was like, oh my God, it was like really magical. It was like a mentor for me.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
was like a
yeah.
mentor for me, that he drew me back into the world of acting from the literature. And I did that. And to top that, when I was doing that show, I met this director who invited me to another play. And I was like, oh, sure, what is the play? And she says, it was the last play of Gerardo that he wrote that he never got to put out into the theater. And I'm inviting you to do the character that he wrote for himself.
Oh,
So I
wow.
ended up doing a character that Gerardo, before he died, wrote for himself. And it was never put out in the theater. And I got to do that run.
That's amazing.
That was so beautiful for me, so magical. And I was like, he is completely my mentor. He
Yeah.
was already in the other world, but we were communicating. And he was like, I choose you to do this character that I was going to do. That's how I
That's
saw it.
great.
So
Yeah,
it's like
that
one of
is.
those gifts.
How do
Yeah.
you, I mean,
Sorry I
how
took
can you
so long
explain?
with this story, but
No, that's great though. But
yeah.
how can you can't explain that? That is like it's meant to be.
Yes. And how, there is an aspect of everything that we do humanly, I think,
Mm.
and also in people's careers or vocations, we're always getting helped by people who come into our paths, and people who and people who we might not even know in a presential, and meet, but who knows? There's such a mystery, like Lee Trevino that I told you. I mean,
Mm.
keeping, all these years, keeping hearing his name, Lee Trevino, we sharing the last name, who knows, and then I'm doing this golf show, and then he's like, maybe connected to me, maybe even in family, who knows? I'm not doing that. So there's like this aspect that is so metaphysical and magical of our profession, and every profession. I think that it's nice to discover it when that magic happens.
It's really good to see the passion and then like, it's lovely when you see someone that really loves what they do. I'd love to ask, do you have advice to any young actors, actresses, people trying to get their foot in the door? Do you have any advice for them?
I guess it's hard, but I think what worked for me and that I can advise is never to always go back to yourself, to ground yourself.
Mm.
Never get so distracted on other aspects that have to do with the profession, but that are not at the core of what we do, like fame, like getting obsessed with a notion of a career and trying to, like, first you have to get your craft done within your heart and within yourself. You have to work that.
Mm.
You have to learn how to be an actor to yourself, wherever life puts you to start. Some people start in theater, some people start directly in movies or whatever, or it's so ample. It's an ample road, and we get started at different points. But wherever it is, always go back to the basics of your connection to your craft and to what you do, and everything else will be revealed, and the path will show you where you have to go, but always keep yourself true to what you why you started to do this, and why it's a passion to do characters and to discover them and to have the honor to be able to voice them,
Mm.
and to come back to that and never lose connection to that, because otherwise you lose the genuine truthful connection to what we do, which is express human truth and human life
Mm.
and voice what we are in all its mystery as a human being. So we always have to come back to that.
Now for a quick break. We'll be back to the episode shortly. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support us, get early access and exclusive content and episodes, click to join our YouTube channel and become a member now.
Please leave us a positive rating. Add us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at lifeinfilmpod. Essentially, please like and subscribe everything. It makes a huge difference. Thank you. Life in Film has partnered with BetterHelp to provide you with access to the largest online therapy service in the world. And it can all be done from the comfort of your own home, from a phone, tablet or laptop. No commute, cutting down travel costs, and most importantly, it's affordable. With over 1,000 therapists in the UK, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a wide variety of expertise in mental health. If you need someone to talk to and you're thinking of giving therapy a go, BetterHelp is a great option. And being a listener of the podcast, you get 10% off. That's 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lifeinfilm. That's betterhelp.com/lifeinfilm. We are sponsored by movieposters.com. Are you a movie fan? I presume you are. Well, at movieposters.com, you can shop for all your favourite posters in one place. The #1 source for high quality, authentic movie posters. From new releases to cult classics and 100% authentic originals. Thinking of having a browse? Well, if you see a poster that tickles your fancy, as a listener of the podcast, you get 10% off. That's 10% off with promo code lifeinfilm10. That's promo code lifeinfilm10. So why not give it a go? And back to the show.
Any questions?
How long have you been in love? What? With golf.
Kind of did what you did, just straighter, longer.
The show is incredible. What an amazing! I mean, I think
Yeah.
Apple have got these 30-minute, shows where like they've got obviously Ted Lasso. They've got the Shrinking. They've literally nailed this kind of show, and this really is just one of the best on there. How did you get involved, and what was the process of was it an audition process for this one?
We're so happy. We're so happy to finally like release it into the world. It was a pleasure and a joy to do, and it's part of the continuation, the process when it goes out into the world. So we're happy. It was an audition process. Of course, I got the audition, and I just thought that the writing was so funny, just as it was. And I loved the tone because it was not overtly like jokey funny, but just like a humorous, you know, um, thing that was there that I was like, oh, I hope I get this, but you never know. So you just like throw it out into the universe, and you never know. And yeah, I started getting the callbacks, which was very surprising. And then I was part of the project, and I knew that Owen was involved and attached to the project as a producer and as an actor. And I knew I started meeting the rest of the cast, and it was just such a great surprise.
Oh man, it's such an incredible
Oh, yeah.
cast as well.
Yeah,
To be a
it
part
is.
of that ensemble is
Yeah.
it's pretty special. How many for something like this, that's sort of top end Apple show, how many callbacks? How traumatic is the audition process?
Yeah. I think it was how many callbacks were they? I think it was like three or four. The last one was flying to LA and doing a chemistry read with Peter,
Ah, right.
with Peter Dagger, with
Yeah,
Santi.
yeah.
And that was like the last one. And it's always tough because you feel you're so close to it. You're like, okay, so now we're gonna do a chemistry read. Hopefully there's chemistry. And there was. I mean, it was immediately a really nice feel between me and Peter.
Mm.
And I think that audition just really kind of detonated, the final. We crossed the threshold into the project, which was great. But yeah, that was a great reading. It was very emotional. It was very easy to connect, and so yeah. But you never know. Even if you have a great audition, you're always like,
Yeah.
sometimes you go out of auditions, you're like, I nailed that. That was great, and then you don't get called back. And sometimes you do something that like what happened in Otto, that you just like send it off, and surprisingly it comes back like, okay, you got picked. So it's
Oh, wow.
very hard to
Yeah.
calculate.
With
Yeah.
a man called Otto, was that a tape then that you did for that?
Yeah, it was a tape that
Wow.
I did, in my apartment in Spain, not my apartment, but I was staying in Spain doing a project and I just did it there without much, nothing else but like what I had there, and that was very surprising. And in this case, well, even though you feel you're close because you're getting a call back to LA, you never really actually know in that last stretch if it's going to happen. So you have to
Mm.
stand by.
Getting that phone call. I mean, a man called Otto must have been a great phone call. This even more so. I mean, this is like a full series. You're like one of the leads in it, and it's. I mean, I
Oh,
imagine it must have been a fairly long shoot. By the way, I smashed the entire thing in 2 days.
oh.
So,
Great, Elliot.
I really
It
enjoyed
is.
it.
It is very bingey. Yeah.
Yeah,
It
it's
kind of, it
scary
kind of
how
takes
bingeable it is.
you. Yeah. It kind
Yeah,
of takes you like along with the characters on the ride. That's what we're hoping, like
yeah,
you get into the Winnebago and you just hit the
yeah.
road as well and kind of accompany emotionally, the characters
A
trip.
hundred percent,
Oh
a hundred
yeah.
percent. Yeah, you're with them. And I mean, I have no interest in golf. I've never really played it even.
Yeah.
But this made me want to play it. I want to give it a go now.
Me too. Me too. After this, I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm gonna get my sticks and I'm gonna go out there. Yeah, yeah, it
Was
does
there
that.
any opportunity to play a bit of golf while you were filming?
I guess I could have looked for the opportunity because some of the other actors were playing, where of course Peter was completely imbued
Mm.
since he got there. I mean, he got playing every time he wasn't filming. We developed this, we went for coffees and everything to talk about the characters. He was like, I'm going to play golf. I can't. I'm going to play. So he was always
Oh
doing that.
wow.
And I think Owen as well, when we were shooting between scenes, Owen would get his little golf cart and go off playing. And so they were very, very like
Yeah.
onto the game as we were filming. And I wasn't, I must admit. But also the interest for the sport got completely, I got so interested in the sport just by observing, by thinking, by being imbued in that whole world,
Mm.
because it's such a particular sport, so different than the others, you
Yeah.
know, and the kind of conceptual quantic aspect of it just kind of fascinated me.
Mm.
Um, I was like, wow, this is a sport like very interesting to analyze,
Mm.
what's behind it, the human impulse to create this sport.
Yeah, it's bizarre when you actually think about what the
Yes,
concept is.
yes,
Um,
yes.
no other sport do you hit a ball that far, I don't think.
Exactly. And such a small ball. It's like one of the smallest balls,
Yeah.
except ping pong and like many, maybe others, but it's like it's almost like an impossibility. I was like, when we were talking about it, it's like you have to curve the ball, get it through the trees, point it over there, and I mean, I was like, okay, it's impossible. But the crazy thing is that it's got its miraculous aspect, it's got like this aspect that is also, I don't know, like metaphysically, like
Mm.
what the soul is capable of manifesting,
Mm.
you know, um, with all these elements that you maybe think that it's impossible. And that's kind of like a process of what the soul goes through in life as well, with what
Mm.
you put out there. Even an audition is a bit like that,
Mm.
you just get it out there. It's like a wishing well out in the open, it's like this ball. You kind of want it to hit the mark that is out there in the big
Yeah.
wilderness out there. And sometimes it does, sometimes it hits the mark or gets close to it. So yeah, it's fascinating to see the human processes behind the sport
Mm.
of like the self with the self. It's like a challenge of you with yourself. You are playing, I mean, you play with other players and it's a competition, but it's mostly you with yourself
Yeah.
and the unpredictable aspect of the world out there, the elements
Mm. That
that
was
you can't predict the outcome, really.
exactly, and that wasn't actually
Yeah.
that wasn't something I expected from the show. That it kind of goes into the sort of mental side of it, as you say,
Yes.
like that aspect of, you can be the best golfer in the world, but if on that day you get psyched out by someone else or your father turning up or whatever it is, and then it can completely throw off your game. And
Yes.
it's a crazy sport. It's
Yeah, yeah, it
yeah, it
is.
has made me want to I want to kind of give it a go now. I want
Yeah,
to.
me too. Me too. After talking about it, after thinking about it, and living it those 3 months that we lived in Vancouver, I'm like, you know what? I think we all should do it and put to the test our own like inner dialogues with our own, because it's like strategy, believing in yourself, self strategy. What am I gonna do? Taka taka. And then the conference with the caddy, that relationship that is built with the caddy,
Yeah.
that is your mentor, but like I don't know, it's very interesting. And then you just walk the field alone. It's a very introspective, contemplative, and philosophical sport.
Well, I always thought the caddy just carried the bags. I didn't realize that
Yeah.
they were like there going, well, no, you should use this and
Yeah.
maybe think about that. I never had any. I mean, Happy Gilmore is probably the closest I've come to watching anything to
Yes.
do with golf, and it doesn't
Yes.
really go
Yeah.
into it like this
Yeah.
does. But yeah, no, really, as I said before, really enjoyed it. And your character, she doesn't really have to, get involved in the golf side of things, but in terms of preparation for this, what was the preparation on your side?
Um, to be quite frank, I got into the cities. I got to Vancouver a bit hassled and running because right before flying to Vancouver for the show, I lost my passport with all my
Mm.
visas and like the Canadian and no, 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 it was crazy. It was like this is not happening. And it was happening. I was like the worst nightmare. I mean, but thankfully, because I believe that aspect of like when you're have to do something, things just move for you to do it.
Mm.
It's like I think everything moved so quickly. I don't know. Some forces were there like helping, but I had like 3 days to fix everything. And people on the other side in the production were like really rooting for me, I hear. Like, oh my God, poor I hope she makes it. I mean, can you imagine being late to the project of like your life? I mean, it was like really crazy. I was like, am I gonna miss this because of, oh my God, am I
That
gonna
must have
have
been
to,
really stressful to,
oh my
once you
God,
actually get
yeah.
on set to calm yourself down and be like, okay, I'm here now. I can
I'm
actually
in
relax.
that.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I did. I got to the airport. I fixed the passport thing. I was like running around in the embassies, like in the Canadian mess, like chasing around, the people who gave like getting into elevators. He's in the elevator. Please, I did this like whole thing. And finally I got the passport together. I get to the airport and I can't get into the flight because my US visa what I didn't get
Ah.
to, that was lost too. So I was like, oh my God, you can't get into the plane. You don't have your US visa. You can't go into territory. I'm like, okay, what does this mean? What's happening? So I just bought another ticket that flew directly from Mexico to Vancouver. So I arrived in this state of like, I almost miss it,
Oh my
I
God.
ran, I got in, I got from the plane, I ran to the set, and I literally ran into set. I was like, tuck, 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 trailing along. And just like everybody was so sweet in their welcoming. Jason was like, you're here. Thank God. Get in there. Do what you do. And also meeting Owen. Owen was everybody was like knowing of the situation. He was like, you're here. Thank God. He was so welcoming. He hugged me. And yeah, and so
Oh,
I was
thank
really
goodness for
nervous. I
that.
didn't get to do a lot of prep in that sense.
Mm-mm.
But once I got there, the welcoming, reaction of everyone was just like what allowed me to breathe and
Mm.
kind of settle down and ground myself in the journey we were about to embark in. So yeah,
Yeah,
that was the thing.
I have my I don't want to give away because obviously a lot of people are going to be listening to this won't have binged it in the first 24 hours of it being out, so I'm gonna just spoiler alert in case we say anything. I don't really want to kind of go into too much detail,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you know I feel like there's definitely potential to be more seasons. Is there any word on that? Have you got any? I guess maybe they have to wait for it to come out, and I don't know
Yes.
how it all works. Has there been any inkling there might be a
I
second
guess.
season?
Yeah, I mean, of course we want. I hope so with all my heart because it was just such a joy to do. And I mentioned what a great, like once in a lifetime opportunity it is
Mhm.
for someone like me to be in a show like this. I grasp and I mention what just happened, for me as an actor and as a person, frankly, because the actors are always feeding on what the person lives. And you know what I mean? Like whatever your soul as a person gets to experience, and your actor is feeding off from that constantly. We are our own source of inspiration in the sense that you utilize whatever your soul has to offer and to create all these characters. So being in a show like this with these cast was just such a gift that I really hope that we get to see what happens with these characters and how the voyage continues. Of course, this is like we're all rooting for it. We always say with Lily and with Peter, we're all like, oh, we hope so. But of course, you never know. We have to wait. We have to have patience on how all those processes work. I'm not really sure of how they work internally in the platforms and what decides it. So I'm just hoping that we get a chance to go on the road again and continue the trip.
I have no doubt.
I hope so. I hope so. Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah,
You know
fingers
that if
crossed.
that gets announced, I'll be somewhere going, because I really,
Yay,
I'm looking forward to seeing the second season. I'll be very disappointed if they don't.
Because also like the what gets detonated in this first season can go to many different roads. It can go, we think things can be predictable, but they're not. You never know in human nature how humans are going to react to anything that happens to them. So it can go anywhere for all these characters. You never get to where you're going to live for more than, people are, it's like, it's always moving. The experience it's like in golf, you win the first hole. Well, there's a second hole coming. So prepare yourself for that. There's always a challenge ahead. And there's always the amount of unpredictable behavior and where that's going to lead you in human terms, So, and like in golf, I'm telling you, like you got that perfect swing in the first hole, and then the second you're slumping, and then that takes you to another different level of like internally where you are, and that happens in life. So, and that can happen to all these characters.
I mean, your performance in this show is incredible, and I mean, also working with Tom Hanks, that you were brilliant in that as well. So I look forward to see what you do next, and I'm hoping there'll be another season of Stick. But in the
Yes,
meantime,
absolutely.
all the best, and thanks so
Thank
much
you.
again for taking the time. It's been a real
On the
pleasure.
contrary, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for watching our show.
I'm probably
Thank you
gonna
so much.
I'm gonna watch it again when it actually comes out with my girlfriend, because I was like, you need to watch this show. She's like, not really into golf. I was like, no, you don't understand. You need to watch this
Yeah.
show.
Thank you, Elliot.
If you enjoyed this episode and you want to support us, get early access and exclusive content, all ad-free, click and join the Life in Film YouTube channel and become a member now. Thank you to our guest Mariana. Thank you to Malcolm and the team at Personal PR. As always, thank you to our sponsors, movieposters.com and BetterHelp. Get 10% off with our discount codes now.